Hello. All right. We are on. I am just going to be testing my audio for a second. My name is Renee Jane, and you guys who are rolling in early, yay! I'm so happy that you're early. I'm always a little bit early. If you can find the chat box for me and let me know that you can hear my audio, that would be awesome. That way I know that you can hear me. You can just put a yes in the chat or I can hear you. And then that would be great. My name is Renee Jane. I am the chief storyteller at GoZen. And those of you who are rolling in early, all right, testing 1, 2, 3. I can hear you. Okay, awesome. So for those of you who are here early, thank you for coming early. I'm always early everywhere in my life. I'm pathologically punctual. So it's almost a disease, but I'm happy to see that there are other people that come early as well. If you guys would like to let everyone in the chat box know where you are from and one of your greatest strengths, that would be amazing. We're a few minutes ahead of schedule, so we are going to be starting at the top of the hour. I'm very prompt with time, as I just said, and I would love to get to know you. So let me know where you're from and one of your greatest strengths. I would love to know. My name is Renee. I'm in Los Angeles. One of my greatest strengths is creativity. We have Ken here. One of his greatest strengths is empathy from San Jose. For those of you who are just rolling in, we're finding the chat box. We're letting everyone know where we're from and one of our greatest strengths. And then we are going to be starting our content packed masterclass in just a few minutes at the top of the hour. So we have Charmin or Charmine. Sorry if I'm saying it wrong. You can let me know from Toronto. Welcome. We have Vonda here from Houston, Texas. Organization is one of your greatest strengths. Wonderful. We have Marnie from Atlanta, strength of authenticity. So for those of you who are just rolling in, we are finding the chat box. We are letting everyone know where we're from and one of our greatest strengths. And then we're going to be starting the masterclass shortly at the top of the hour. We have Anne here from Portland, Oregon. Her strength is empathy. We have Urja here, positivity. We have Selin from Calgary. I too am very punctual, wonderful. We have Joe from New Zealand, resilience, beautiful. We have Lavonda here from Vancouver. One of my strengths is positivity. I love this. So for those of you who are just joining us, again, my name is Renee. This is the masterclass, 5 tools. It's a really long name. Even saying the name takes a few minutes from us. So it's 5 tools resilient kids use to handle stress, negativity, anger, and perfectionism. I didn't say that in the right order, but those are all of the topics that we are going to cover. And we are going to cover them shortly, but we are jumping into the chat box and we're letting everyone know where we're from and one of our greatest strengths. We have someone named Renee here. So my name is spelled the same way, Renee, yay. It's just mine is pronounced Renee, and I'm guessing yours is Renee. Empathy is one of your greatest strengths. We have Nikisha here. Her strength is empathy. Wow, beautiful. Imagine we could stitch all of these strengths together and use them to help our kids, which is what we are going to do. So for those of you who are just rolling in, we're just a few minutes early. And so what we're doing is we're jumping in chat, letting everyone know where we're from and one of our greatest strengths. And then we are going to start this content-packed masterclass on time in a few minutes. We have Zarka here from British Columbia, Canada. My strength is that my motivation comes from being challenged every day. Wow, beautiful. I love that. Ken says it's a bummer you can't see us. Yes, every masterclass differs. The last one I ran last week, there were 600 of us. And so sometimes that just makes it difficult with all the cameras and all of the voices, but maybe we will find a format where we can all see one another. However, when we tell each other where we're from and one of our greatest strengths, I feel like when you get to know people either in an organization or personally, those are the things that really bond you. So I love that we can see that. So for those of you who are just rolling in, my name is Renee. I'm the chief storyteller at GoZen. We're going to be starting your masterclass in a couple of minutes. Find the chat box. Let me know where you're from and one of your greatest strengths. So we have Maureen here from Virginia. One of her greatest strengths is empathy. Okay, so we have a lot of empathetic people here today. That's very exciting. I think empathy is one of my greatest strengths as well. So thank you for sharing so openly. I've also seen patience in here. Ken says that he's a school counselor. Awesome, Ken. Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing that. We have Melody here from Trussville, Alabama. Welcome, Melody. Great to see you. Let us know one of your greatest strengths. I would love to hear it. For those of you who are just rolling in a couple of minutes early, we are going to be starting at the top of the hour. My name is Rini with GoZen, and I have an awesome masterclass for you. This is absolutely live. So it's December 13th. What's the date? I've only written it so many times today. December 13th, and we're going to be starting in a couple of minutes. I'm very excited to be here with you guys. So we have, hi Mary. Mary says, hi Rini. Adaptability and creativity from Vancouver Island, Canada. Beautiful, thank you. Also Vancouver Island, beautiful. We have Sandra here from Toronto. Patience is one of your greatest strengths. We have Sarah from Canada. A lot of Canadians, welcome. I am fantastic with young kids and going with the flow and overcoming adversity. Well, you have beautiful strengths. My husband says mine is perseverance. Melody, beautiful. Thank you. Thank you for getting an outside opinion. I like that, the 360-degree view. So for those of you who are just rolling in, we're going to start promptly at the top of the hour. So that's just a couple minutes. We are really talking about where we're from, which is easy, but then also sharing with a group one of our greatest strengths. So I earlier said creativity is one of my greatest strengths. I'm also resourceful. So I grew up with a dad who basically taught me if you don't know the answer, there's a way to find it. And I think that's something that's in me that strongly, I'm resourceful. So especially when it comes to problem solving. So thank you so much for joining us. Charmin says, love your classes. Thank you. Don't don't say it at the beginning of the class. Say it at the end of the class. Let's see what happens today. No, I'm excited for this class. I have a lot of really good content to share with you guys, and I'm excited to see you here. There are so many of you who are joining us right now. We are jumping into the chat. We're sharing where we're from and one of our greatest strengths. We have Letitia here. Love your master classes. Thank you. We have Kara from Nova Scotia. So we have a lot of Canadians here. Welcome. Sarah from New Jersey, and let me know, you guys, one of your greatest strengths. I saw humor above. Beth from Toronto, sense of humor, fantastic. Laughter is the best medicine, right? And research shows it, but we don't really need the research. We all know that. Wonderful. Sarah says, hi, are we all muted? Yes, Sarah. At this time, you guys are all muted. Sometimes on these master classes I was mentioning earlier, we have hundreds of people join, and so if we're all talking, there's a lot of feedback and echo, and I have so much to share with you. So for this particular class, I will be talking a lot, but you can share with each other in the chat, and we're going to start in about a minute or so. For those of you who are just joining us, we're jumping into the chat, and we're saying where we're from and one of our greatest strengths. We have Jen from Boston, flexibility and creativity. We have Letitia. She tries to help coaching happiness to kids and families. Beautiful. We have Letitia's from Cabo San Lucas. Awesome. Love that. And we have Melissa, who says her greatest strength is gratitude. Wonderful. Yes, I love this. This is so good. Wonderful. So for those of you who are just joining us, we're going to start in a minute or so. We've been jumping into the chat talking about where we're from and one of our greatest strengths, and we are about to start this class that is going to be packed full of information, and you're not even going to believe how much we're going to get through, and we're going to be somewhere halfway through, and I've only given you one tool, and I promise I will give them all to you because they're all in there. And they're things that you can use immediately, either with your family or your students or both. So we're on time. We're going to start, right? We are going to start. So for those of you who are just rolling in, we were jumping into the chat, sharing where we're from and one of our greatest strengths, and you can continue to do so. And I am going to share my screen now and make myself smaller. Let's see, share. All right, so we do a couple of checks. Well, I do a couple of checks because I like to make sure that you can see the screen. So if you see the slide that says 5 tools, my cover slide, resilient kids use to handle stress, anger, perfectionism, and negative thoughts, please put a 1 in the chat box for me. So that way I know that you see the slide. Okay, excellent. If you can hear me clearly, I have a good headset. I have many a good headset, but put a 2 in the chat box if you can hear me clearly. 2. Okay, you can hear me clearly. Okay. And now what I'm going to do for the sake of, I'll show my face here and there, but for the time being, I am going to just show you the slides because there's a lot of content that you're going to get from the slides. Okay, so we are going to start the class. As I said earlier, my name is Rini Jain. I am the chief storyteller at GoZen, and I am very excited to be here with you for 5 tools. But I have to tell you that I created the title of the class before I finished my slides. So I'm actually going to be giving you 12 tools. So not to start off our relationship on a lie, but that is what is going to be happening. All right, so I want to let you know always when you're on a master class if you're in the right place. It's sort of like when you're getting on a flight to go somewhere and they tell you where you're going. I want you to know that you're going to the right place, right? You're in the right place if your child is experiencing stress, anxiety, anger, perfectionism, or negative thoughts. You're in the right place if you want immediate, actionable tools to help your child or students, right? So I saw that we had a school counselor on. We generally have professionals on in any of these master classes, so either children or students or both. If you want to learn how to support your child with these tools, you're in the right place. And if you yourself, as a parent or a caretaker, want love, compassion, and understanding for your experience, I am a parent, I was a child, I am a wife, a daughter, and I understand your experiences. You know, nobody can ever 100% understand another person's experiences, but I'm highly empathetic. I'm here not to judge. I'm here for compassion and support. So if you're looking for that, you're in the right place. Okay, I want to start by asking this. I want you to find the chat box and tell me when you look at this lady, what word comes to mind? What one word comes to mind for you? What word? Dangerous, seatbelt, multitasking, distracted, busy, relatable. That's me, someone says. Busy, overwhelmed, distracted, me, busy, yes, crazy, my mind. Oh, someone says my mind. Yes, busy, busy. Yes, that's us, right? I mean, maybe we don't drive like this because it's a little bit reckless, but we're busy. We're busy. And somehow it seems that time is speeding up. There are actually these time perception studies where they say time is actually speeding up, or we're perceiving it to speed up, maybe because we're doing so many things. So I would say for this hour that we're together, and I know an hour in internet time is like a year, but let us try to be these people, right? That had really questionable fashion, perhaps, and hair. But in the 80s, when I was growing up, yes, 80s, someone says 80s, there was less technology, there was less alt tabbing, and there was really somehow time was a little bit slower. So I am going to be very respectful of your time because I understand it's all different hours of the day and night for people right now. I understand you have other things to do. You might have a child tugging on you right now, but please be present with me. What can happen when I leave the chat on is everyone gets very excited to be with each other, and you miss something I'm saying that can be completely relevant to what you're experiencing, or you get excited by my slides. My slides are exciting, trust me. You'll agree with that. And I'm not bold to say that. I will say my slides are exciting. So you'll get excited and say, hey, can I get the slides? I promise you I will answer all of your questions. But what I want from you is presence, and I will give you the same thing. Okay, so if we're ready for that and we're ready to try to be present the best that we can, if you can type into the chat box ready, then I will know that we are ready to go. Okay, let's roll. Okay, we are going to start. Awesome, so many people ready. I am ready as well. We are going to start with Emotions 101 because I think that we come into this world understanding emotions as babies, and then we completely lose it. Okay, so emotions are supposed to work like this, right? They are supposed to come into the body, send us a message, and then leave. They're not supposed to hang out. They're not supposed to get stuck there. They're not supposed to be ignored. They're supposed to come in. They're messengers, send us a message and leave. Of course, when they come in, they're uncomfortable, right? But they're messengers. Emotions are communication tools. That's what they are. They're data points. They are temporary. They should be transient. And when we're young, we're really good at the transient nature of emotions, of allowing them to come in and out of us, right? But what happens to us is we forget. So let's say, that your child has a test, and this test is a trigger for them, some sort of emotional trigger that causes, we'll just choose the emotion of stress. Well, how this should work is they should feel it in their body and their mind, right? That's the first thing that should happen. But what we know about emotions is that we feel them in our body first. This is a Finnish study that was done where they heat mapped emotions. And they said to people, where do you feel anger? And you can see on the top left, anger was felt in the top of the body, so the head and the arms, perhaps the arms because of the fight or flight mode, right? And in the chest. So we feel emotions in particular parts of our body, and that should happen. But we're very, very disconnected from our body, right? We're very disconnected from how we actually feel when we have an emotion. So we should feel it in our body. We should listen to its message, and then we should act on that message. But what happens is we get so incredibly freaked out when we feel the stress or we see the stress in our child that this whole process ends right here. We shut it down, right? So we're not using an emotion to its greatest advantage. Okay, let's take stress as an example of how it should work, right? How should stress work in our body? So when stress goes into the body, it is a messenger, right? And it's sending a message like this. And if I were able to decipher the message, maybe I would say, I feel stress in my body and have stressful thoughts racing through my mind. If I were actually in tune with my body and I was able to feel where that stress was, that's what I would be saying to myself. And then I would be able to listen to the message, right? The message that's being sent. You're being challenged. That's why you're feeling the stress. You need support. That's why you're feeling the stress. And then based on the message, I would be able to take some kind of action. The stress I feel is uncomfortable, but natural. I'm going to use it to help motivate me, right? And that's something that we'll talk about going forward, how I would come to this action point. But this is how emotions are supposed to work, because every emotion has a purpose, right? Sadness has a purpose. We acknowledge and learn from loss, hurt, and failure with sadness. Stress has a purpose. It can protect us from danger, enhance motivation, focus, performance. Doubt can uncover truth. Anger even has a purpose, right? To protect values and power. But we have demonized these emotions, saying these are bad. We shouldn't feel these. We should, make them go away. They're shameful for a lot of people to even show them. And as I said, when we come into the world, we're really good at at being able to go through emotions so quickly. So when you see a kid crying and then 2 seconds later they're happy, and maybe they were fighting with a sibling earlier, and you think to yourself, wait a second, why are you not hanging on to that? Why are you not hanging on to that emotion? Don't you want to talk about it anymore? And they're completely over it. They've moved on, right? If you've ever seen a toddler, toddlers move on very quickly because they are experiencing emotions as they were meant to be experienced. They're temporary, they're sending them a message, and then they've moved on. And as we get older, we hold on to them because we are influenced, right? I was influenced as I grew up when it came to my emotions of chronic worry and stress. And I was influenced by a few things. So the first thing I was influenced was by Star Wars. And so this is true, and I'm going to tell you why. If anyone else was influenced by Star Wars, can I see it? Heck yeah, in the chat box. Anyone else influenced by Star Wars out there? Or is it just me? Oh, all right, good. We're getting Jedi power. Okay. Now I am, Krista says. I honestly thought that Luke Skywalker was this guardian of justice and beacon of hope and the greatest superhero of all time because he wielded the light side of the Force. And that meant that he always did good and felt good, right? He never was dark, right? He never felt any dark emotions. So I believed that in order to be good, you needed to feel good. My mom was another influencer. She's amazing and supportive and compassionate, but she consistently said to me, I just want you to be happy, right? When she saw me worry all the time and she didn't know how to help, she would say, all I want for you is to be happy. And teachers now and again would see me having these really big emotions. And again, supportive, loving teachers, but one of their ideas was, listen, your feelings are really big. They're not really acceptable. I don't really want to see the big feelings. So go make them go away and then come back when they're gone. And so to me, the message I heard from all of this was be happy. That is what you should show people. That is what everyone expects. That is the definition of success. And what happened to me is what happens to a lot of kids, right? When they realize that nobody wants to see these emotions and that somehow they are quote unquote bad, they start to stuff them inside. Brene Brown has an interesting quote based on research. We cannot selectively numb emotions. When we numb the painful ones, we also numb the positive ones. And then Susan David, another researcher, says if we're going to authentically and meaningfully be in this world, we can't focus on one dimension of life and expect that focusing on that dimension is going to then give us a well-rounded life. What this all means is that you cannot pretend or feign like nothing bothers you. Like you are not having this part of the human condition. You don't feel sad, you don't feel negative, you don't feel stressed. Because eventually what happens, what Brene Brown is clearly saying, is that you become a robot. I became one, an emotional stoic. How is school? Fine. What about your friends? Fine. Everything's fine. You know, I put a smile on my face. I was a robot. I was a non-feeling human. And the consequences of not feeling are exactly what we are talking about on this masterclass today, right? The 4 consequences that I've seen in my life personally and that I see with my life professionally working with kids. And ultimately what happens when you pretend like nothing is wrong and nothing bothers you and everything is fine is that your body does the only thing your body can do. And for me, it was this. It shut me down. I had panic attack after panic attack after panic attack until I finally had the blessing of ending up in therapy and realizing, right, what one of the greatest teachers could have told me back in the 80s. You must unlearn what you have learned, especially when it comes to emotions. So again, very quickly, my name is Rini Jain. I'm the founder and chief storyteller at GoZen. I have a master's in applied positive psychology from the University of Pennsylvania. But if we met somewhere and you asked me what I did and we only had like a few seconds, I would tell you this. I teach kids skills I wish I had when I was a kid. Okay, so now that you understand a little bit about emotions and the basis of why I'm doing this class, let me know that you're with me by saying rock on, and I'm going to give you these 12 tools. So tell me in the chat, rock on. All right, awesome. Okay, let's rock on. Okay, here's the huge myth, right? We should manage our emotions. Myth, myth, myth. Manage your anger, manage your stress, manage your negativity, manage this. These things are part of our humanity. And the message that we're sending, while again, I'm not denying that you are a loving, compassionate parent that's sitting here on a master class right now when you could be doing something else. I know that you're awesome, right? So I'm not taking that away from you. What I'm saying is that the message that our kids get is that these emotions are bad. What we need to manage is not the emotion, because the emotion is there for a reason. We need to manage our relationship with our emotions, right? This is not about emotional management. I rather call it emotional transformation. Okay, so here, let's transform the way that we look at emotions and that we talk about them with kids. Let's start with stress. The first tool is to adopt a stress has an upside mindset, right? This is the very first tool. So now this feels counterintuitive if you're living in a very stressed out household, right? I'm just using colloquial language here, but if you're living in a household where you have kids that don't want to go to school, maybe you have a spouse or maybe yourself are experiencing anxiety or high stress, and you know it's bad because you see the ramifications. Well, I also want to say that we have been bred to think that stress is bad because we've been told by marketing campaign after marketing campaign that it kills, right? It's so bad for you. Chronic stress kills. And chronic, particular types of stress can do these things that you see. However, there is no coverage or very little on the benefits of stress. And it is so important to explain this to kids because it can change the way that stress reacts in their body. The first thing that we teach kids is that stress can protect you, right? So, what you're seeing here, if you pick up any psych book or even read any article about anxiety, they're going to talk about the fight or flight mode. Back when we were cavemen, we needed a way to protect ourselves from danger. And so we have this thing built into our system. And when we get stressed, it pumps hormones through our body, right? The fear response, the stress response, the anxiety response. So you're going to hear it used in many different ways. And there are nuances, but for sake of explanation, we're going to use them interchangeably. But it protects you. So kids get this and they're like, really? So stress isn't all bad? No, it's not all bad. It can protect you. In fact, let's bring it to modern times and talk about true stories where people have something called hysterical strength, where this woman, Angie, lifted up a car that weighed 3,000 pounds and she can't, she can do a fraction of that normally to save her son, Tony. The jack fell out and he was about to be crushed and she ran and she picked the car up, right? How did she do that? It was stress. Stress can protect us. It protects you from touching a hot stove. So, contrary to what we've been taught and have been told, the body stress response wasn't designed to kill us. The evolutionary goal of the stress response was to help boost the body and mind into enhanced functioning, to help us grow and really meet the demands that we face. But it's hard to say that to people because they're like, what are you talking about? It's so bad. It's so bad in my house. I've been told that it kills. We should get rid of it. We do not want to get rid of our emotions again and the feelings that we feel. They serve a purpose. There are different kinds of stress responses, right? So the one that they talk about most often is the fight, flight, or freeze response. And then a lot of people stop there. But there's also the tend and befriend response. So if you're the type of person that gets stressed and you're like, I need to call my bestie, you pick up the phone, that's the tend and befriend response. That is you going out and seeking social support, which is a good thing, right? And then there's something called the challenge response. So stress can be produced, right? The stress response can be activated in your body when you face a challenge, and you can actually use stress to your advantage. So I want to ask you a question, and that's this. Is it better to say to yourself before a test, or for you to advise your child to say to themselves before a test, A, I'm excited, or B, I'm calm? Find the chat box for me and tell me which one you think will help your child perform better. I'm excited, A or B. Oh, I should run this as a poll. I always forget to run it as a poll because I want to see the percentages. But as you can see for yourself, if you're looking in the chat box, it's a mixed bag, right? Some people are saying calm, some people are saying excited. It's mixed. So this has been studied by Alison Woods Brooks from Harvard Business School. She's studied it in many different domains. And basically, it is better to say, I am excited, because you can jump from the stress response to the excitement response very quickly because they're very similar physiologically, right? So how do you make stress work for you, for your kids, if they're taking a test, giving a speech, doing something that's performance related? Teach them to reframe. These three words, I am excited, right? Saying I am excited, that, yeah, I feel nervous right now. There's butterflies in my stomach, but I'm excited for this particular test coming up. This stress is helping me in this situation. Stress is helping me rise to the occasion. Remembering that the stress response can be used to help enhance your performance can actually help it do so, right? So just reframing can help. When it comes to test taking, right? My sweaty palms and racing heart is stress. Stress can help me focus through this test. I'm excited. So again, lots of studies done in this area when it comes to taking tests, when it comes to performance, when it comes to things like that. There is an upside to having stress if you know how to use it to your advantage. So the upsides can be motivation, protection, focus, connection, right? And again, just teaching kids about the upside of stress really transforms their mindset. I have been working with kids for years now, and when you tell them that there is an upside, their jaws drop. What are you talking about? I thought everything I was going through was so bad that there's something wrong with me, right? We have literally made our kids and ourselves believe that there is something wrong with us because we have human emotions and human feelings and human experiences. So I want to be as science-based as possible with kids. As you know, the science is always correcting itself and changing and evolving, but this is what we know now. So the second tool, can you believe we've only done one tool? But don't worry, I'm going to give you 12 and I'm going to honor your time. So the second tool, and if you guys are with me, I'm going to take a sip of water, but if you're with me, if you can write a number 2, because we're on tool 2 in the chat box. Okay, awesome. Fantastic. Take a sip. Okay, tool number 2 is to bring stress to life, right? Personification. This can be done at any age. In the Gozen programs, we teach kids about this character that you see on the screen. His name is Whittle the Worrier, right? And what we do is we are trying to separate this idea of anxiety or worry from the child. We're saying, listen, this is something that you're experiencing. If you remember in the beginning of the masterclass, I showed that worry goes into your body and then it leaves your body. You are not any emotion, because you cannot be, because they are transient, because they are temporary, right? So this is a temporary experience, and we want to externalize the worry and separate it from who you are. As you know your children, you know that's not all they are. You know that they are not just a worry wart, that they have incredible character strengths, that they have an essence that is not made up of being worried, right? So all of this seems very sophisticated and hard to explain to kids, but saying to them, you're not your worry. You know, there's someone named Whittle the Worrier, right? And he represents your worry. He's like your worry in your body. And this guy he's not a bad guy, right? He's just a little overprotective of you. And for some people, Whittle the Worrier gets a little bit out of control. He overreacts. All of this, all of the language I'm using obviously can be adjusted based on the age of the child. So create a character. It doesn't have to be Whittle. It can be a worry bug. You know, you can use a stuffed animal, you can use an action figure, you can use something relevant to a teen. It just really depends on the age of the child, but separate them from their worry. Separation and diffusion, right, as they call it in the psychological community, is important. So we teach kids to go from I am anxious or I am worried, right, to I am having the anxious thought that. I'm having the worried thought that. So again, this technique is called diffusion. You're separating the emotion from the essence of who your child is. This is a temporary communication tool, right? Whittle is trying to communicate something, and that's what we want kids to learn. So externalizing this and making it something palpable really helps kids, because then they can talk to their worry. And this is called self-disputation, right? When you're literally talking to yourself and debating yourself. We teach kids to debate themselves and have a debate with Whittle. And we always tell them to forget positive thinking. I always tell parents to forget it, because it makes kids cringe, you know, even at a young age. And in reality, it's not what we're going for, right? Again, remember from the beginning of this masterclass, we are not going for happyology, for just happiness. So we don't talk about positive thinking. What we're trying to teach kids is that they can dispute the inaccurate thoughts that they have. and they can kickstart their logical brain. They can kickstart risk assessment, because these are the things that live in the newer part of the brain that's not accessible when you're very worried. What we want them to do is not think positively, we want them to think accurately. What they really understand is that, oh, my thinking isn't accurate. Your thinking is notoriously inaccurate, in fact, when you're worried. It's really exaggerated. There are different types of thought errors that you have when you're worried. In the Gozen programs, we call them thought holes. Another thing that we teach kids is that Whittle does a lot of what ifing, right? So if your child is a, what if this happens? What if that happens? What if this happens tomorrow? Then what we say to them is not just, don't worry, it's not going to, or you have to trust me, which is reassurance, which I understand from a parenting point of view that is a knee-jerk response. I do it with my own kids, but it doesn't help quell the worry at all, right? As you know. You can say, don't worry, it's going to be fine to your child and trust me, and then they're going to worry 5 minutes later. What will help them is if you help them create an if-then plan. And this comes from goal-setting research. So if you have a contingency plan, meaning if your child is saying, well, what if no one sits with me at lunch tomorrow? And you say to them, okay, I hear you, and that would be hard. So what are we going to do about that? If no one sits with me at lunch, if this happens, then I will go to the library, or I'll put on a set of headphones, or whatever the plan is, right? If you create the plan in advance, it can really help quell the worry. Okay, so here we go with the next character that we've created. Her name is Trixie, and we use her for our panic, right? Our panic program. So a lot of times when kids are very anxious, they also experience panic attacks, extreme sudden onset of high tension worry that usually lasts anywhere from 10 minutes to 60 minutes, right? And so sometimes, even if a kid has never heard of a panic attack, once you explain it, they're like, yeah, I've had that. So Trixie is a trickster that tricks you into fearing the fear response, which leads to a vicious cycle of panic. Now, I'm going to show you a few slides that I find so fascinating that I could literally sit on them for the rest of the class, but I won't. But I'm trying to get your attention because it's just so fascinating. And I really think that if we teach anyone that has panic attacks, what I'm going to teach you in the next few slides, we could help them overcome it. I know that's a bold statement, but here, listen to what I have to say. So there's a researcher named Joseph Ledoux, and a few decades ago, he coined the term the fear circuit that had to do with the amygdala. Okay, so basically what he said is if there was a threat, right? Let's say there's a scary bear, and you saw him. Well, what would happen is this little part of your brain inside of the older part of your brain called the amygdala would activate. And that would activate the fight, flight, or freeze response. So he called this little area in the brain the fear circuit, right? He said, yeah, the fear circuit activates. And so everyone understood it. Everyone understood what he was saying. And they were like, okay, well, fight, flight, or freeze activates. And the assumption was that this made you feel fear. Okay, so the fear circuit, you see a bear, the fear circuit activates, and you feel afraid, right? So a few years ago, he came out with another book, and he said, I made a huge mistake. And the mistake I made was calling that the fear circuit. I should have never done that, because then everyone thought that the fear circuit made you feel fear. What happens when you see a bear or some kind of danger is the threat center is activated. I wish I'd called it the threat center, because the threat center is not voluntary. You can't help it if your breathing speeds up, your heart starts racing, you start sweating when you see that bear, right? It's not voluntary, it's not conscious. But fear is not so. It is not like that. When the threat center activates and your body starts freaking out, let's say, right, in slang terms, your heart starts racing, you have shallow breath, and it feels very dangerous. And excuse me for saying this, but I work with a lot of kids who will say to me, I felt like I was going to die when that happened, right? This is the thing. they didn't feel the fear because of that threat center. They felt the fear because of their interpreting, their conscious interpretation of what was going on with the body, right? When you see yourself, your body going through panic, you begin to interpret what's going on with it, and your interpretation is conscious. So, if we can change the conscious interpretation of what's going on with your body, we can pass through the panic. And what I mean is that if you've ever been to a horror movie or a scary movie and your heart starts racing, when someone screams and you don't expect them to, well, that's the threat center activating. But do you feel afraid? Do you feel true fear? No, because you're in a movie theater, maybe eating popcorn. You have interpreted the situation, your heart racing, as not dangerous. And here's the thing about panic attacks. When your child panics, mindset's extremely important, because barring any other medical issue, and again, I'm not an MD, as you guys know, but barring other medical issues, if this is just a panic attack, if a doctor is saying to you guys that, listen, those are panic attacks, nothing else is going on, right? Everything else is clear. They are not dangerous. They're extremely uncomfortable, but they are not dangerous, right? So when your child is experiencing extreme panic, an anxiety attack, a panic attack, the phrase that they need to say to themselves is, this is uncomfortable, but not dangerous, right? If they are saying to themselves something terrible is happening and I think I'm going to die, if that's the interpretation, that's where the fear comes from. And when you keep feeling the fear of what's going on physiologically with your body, even though your body's not in danger, it keeps you stuck in a vicious cycle of panic. You can literally break the cycle of panic with your mindset. Okay, I am going to take another sip of water. If you guys are with me, just type in the chat box, I'm with you. I'm with you. 3 words, I'm with you. And we will keep going to tool number 3. All right, I'm with you. Awesome. Lots of tools for you guys today, okay? Tool number 3, let your kids feel their feelings, and please feel your feelings. This takes practice. We are terrible at this for multiple reasons. One of them because we were probably never taught it as kids. We may have been told as kids not to cry, not to do this, not to feel bad. And again, I'm not saying that any of our parents were doing anything out of malintention, right? The second thing is that we're so busy, we have so many things going on that we don't have time for our feelings anymore, right? We don't have time for our kids to have a meltdown while they're tying their shoes in the morning, because we all have to get out the door and everybody has to go to work and go to school. So we don't have time to feel our feelings. But we need to feel our feelings because they're there for a reason. So this takes practice, right? So how do you feel your feelings? How do we teach kids to feel their feelings? We tell them, well, feelings go in your body. And believe me, they get this, right? Kids are much more attuned to their body than we are. And where do you feel it in your body, right? Where is it in you? Is it in your tummy? Is it in your chest? Locate it. Where is it? Where is it in the body? Allow the feeling, we tell kids. I know sometimes you want to run away from it. I know it's uncomfortable, but it's not dangerous, right? Allow it, because when you resist it, it persists. What you resist persists. So allow it and embrace it. And once you get used to allowing the feelings, whether the feeling be anger or the feeling be worry or any other feelings, once you allow it, you get used to being able to do that. Then you're able to do this very interesting thing, which is to listen to the message that the feeling is sending you. If you have ever been in any kind of relationship, let's say, and you did something that you regret, I'm giving you an example, and you feel guilt, right? Has anybody ever felt guilt before? Can you just in the chat box say yes? Let me know that you felt guilt before. Well, what is the message that guilt is sending you? Take a stab. What's guilt sending you? What message is it sending you? Don't do it again. Yep. I'm bad. Shame. You did something wrong. Something wrong. I did something wrong. Yes. Apologize. Okay. So whatever the message is that we're deciphering, you messed up, man. You were wrong. Vulnerability, right? you can see that the emotion had a purpose, right? The emotion of guilt had a purpose. Every single emotion has a purpose. It's trying to send you a message. You just have to listen, right? And so we teach kids, I call this the Lala method, to locate their feelings, allow it, listen to what it's saying, and then act on it. And they can practice and they are able to do it, right? And I'm going to go a little bit more into Lala when we talk about anger right now. So now we're going to talk about anger. So this class is about 4 big topics. We've hit 1 so far, which is stress. We're on the second one now, which is anger. Okay, now I'm going to ask you a question after I say this. This is the tool, the first tool for anger. Adopt, and we're on the 4th tool overall for the masterclass. So this tool for anger, the first tool for anger is adopt a stress. And anger has an upside, mindset. Adopt an anger has an upside mindset. Okay, tool number 4. I know that sounds wild and unacceptable to many people, but I'm not saying adopt an aggression has an upside mindset. I'm not saying that behavior based in anger has an upside. I'm saying anger, the emotion, has an upside. So let me ask you this. I want to ask you what happened that made you angry the last time you got angry, okay? What happened to you that made you angry the last time you got angry? You can either share it in the chat or you can think about it yourself. So if you want to share, that would be, I had an argument with someone says, Ken says, I was frustrated. Stephanie says, dismissed by my boss. I wasn't being heard. I was hungry. Was being misunderstood. My kids screamed at me. My kids are fighting in the car. Unfairness. My kids didn't go to bed on time. Accused of something I didn't do. Treated unfairly. Okay. So you can feel free to keep going, But the second question I have for you with this scenario that you just dropped into the chat box is, what were you trying to protect when you got angry? What were you trying to protect? So feel free to drop that. My boundaries, my son, my time, myself, my way of thinking, boundaries, my good name, my feelings, my control. Yes, 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 yes. Lots of stuff. Oh, sorry guys. Screen sharing closed. We don't want that to happen. Okay, my values. While you guys are popping that in, I am resharing my screen. Sorry about that. My sanity. Yes, I hear that. Okay, here we go. So yes, so I'm asking what you were trying to protect, because this is really the misunderstanding about anger. Anger is protection, and all of those things that you guys just said, values, safety, fairness, respect, honor, connection, right, with kids, your own agency, your ability to influence things, essentials, your boundaries, essentially. Anger is a protection of honor, integrity, and the boundaries that you set up for yourself. And it is why when that boundary, that barrier that you see around this man that's drawn here gets pierced, you get angry, because your anger is trying to send you a message that your boundaries have been violated. That's the message that the anger is sending, right? But the thing is that, again, anger is, of all the emotions, the most demonized. Anger is just bad, flat out bad. But when we think about anger, it can promote incredible change, right? This is a picture of Rosa Parks, who refused to obey the bus driver and give up her seat. And she had courage that was fueled by anger, she says in her own words. So what do we do? The first thing is there's an understanding. That's the first step, the first tool, that anger has an upside, that anger has a message to send. The second tool, or tool number 5, sorry, I won't confuse you. Tool number 5 is use your supervision, right? To find the root of what's going on. So supervision is a superpower that all of us have, to be able to look inside someone else that's getting angry, right? And to see that the anger is really a secondary emotion that's the tip of the iceberg. And what's underneath is something else. What's underneath is not anger under anger under anger, right? There's something else going on underneath. And it's our job as parents and grandparents, uncles, aunts, teachers, caretakers of this next generation to figure out what is underneath by looking beneath, by using that superpower and looking beneath. Because there is a great misunderstanding of anger, right? And what triggers anger, and really what triggers any emotion. What triggers anger has fascinated me. What triggers stress? What brings it on, right? So I often think about two kids, let's take twins, that face the same adversity, and why do they have different reactions? Why do two kids who face the same challenge, these two kids that you see here, both failed a test, but the one on the left is angry and the one on the right is like, no, not so much, okay, that wasn't great. Maybe she's a little amused. Maybe she'll end up going to a tutor. Maybe the other one will spiral downward, right? Why did these two kids have such different reactions? We might say, well, it's the way they were raised, or it's their backgrounds, or it's the way they were wired. All of those things may contribute, right? I'm giving you a twins example. So some of those variables are eliminated. But what I would say to you is that it's not the event, the failed test that triggers the anger. It's the interpretation of the event. It's the way that we think about it, right? So the one on the left is thinking about it in a very different way than the one on the right. And that interpretation might be extreme awfulness, right? Interpreting things as the worst or inadequate coping. These are the interpretations that can lead to anger. I can't handle this. Projected perfectionism. The teacher should have done something differently, right? I shouldn't have an F grade. I'm not worthy. Obviously, I have no worth if I'm failing. Or the world should be different. Everything is unfair. I'm showing these interpretations because this is the place where the work needs to be done when it comes to anger, right? Because then if you're really only concerned about the aggression, and again, I'm not saying that there should be hitting, there should be fighting, there should be biting, right? But I'm saying that if we're only putting a Band-Aid on those, we're never getting to the root of the issue, and where the work needs to be done is in the interpretation. I teach kids and I teach parents about something called the eater model, and this is related to what we were just talking about. So, and I'm going to give an adult example. So this mom is saying to this kid named Lisa, Lisa, please no jumping on the bed, it's not safe, right? This is the triggering event for the mom. And then the mom has this thought, ugh, she's going to break her neck. She's not listening again. And I call this a fat thought. This is the first automatic angry thought that you have. A lot of times, you don't mean this thought, right? And then is the reaction, I said, get down. And then is the guilt, right? We don't show that pain. But right here is where the work needs to be done. And with kids, we have them draw these comic panels often. What was the event? What was the thought you were having? Was that thought accurate, right? Is that thought something you actually mean? Do you want to let that thought pass by, and we work on really working with the thought so that we can change the reaction? And so just again, explaining these things to kids can be the basis of the beginning of change. Tool number 6, feel your angry feelings. So la those feelings again, in terms of teaching kids. So Jenny was asking, first automatic what thought? First automatic angry thought. And there will be a little Q&A at the end of this, just so you guys know. And I want to get through a bunch more content, and I will keep you on time, I promise. So when anger goes into the body, it's very uncomfortable, especially anger, because most of the time we're trying to hide it or muffle it, or or if we're explosive, then we explode right away. So we're not able to practice this process, right? But if we are able to practice it, locate, allow it, right? Allow the anger. Again, not the aggression. I'm not saying to hit a wall or allow kids to be aggressive, but allow the feeling within you. Listen to the message. Your boundaries have been violated. You need change, right? And then act upon that. This can be done in writing. This can be done using a lot of mindfulness practice, basically. But once you're able to use this Lala method with other feelings, then you're able to apply it to anger. Anger can be more difficult in terms of the application. One thing that kids really get is this idea that there is a gap, right, between the feelings and the reaction. So again, I'm going to use that test example as a trigger. So let's say the test is a trigger and there are angry feelings and thoughts. Well, what happens is, for the most part, our reactions, our outward reactions, whether they're outie reactions, I call them, if you're an outie and you're yelling, or they're innie, where you're just repressing everything, you're super angry and maybe you're stomping around. Those reactions come so quickly. There's such an overlap between the two that it feels like they're almost the same thing, right? And it's why we say, don't get so angry, right? The anger is okay. It's the reaction that we want to change. And there is work to be done in creating a space. And there are lots of beautiful quotes that people have written about this gap. But I teach kids that this is a gap and we need to mind the gap, right? And we need to widen that gap. So first know that there's a gap and then widen the gap. It's often said that it only takes 4 to 5 seconds to come down from that place of extreme anger, right? So you only need a little bit of a gap so that you can temper your reaction and really work with your thoughts. So there's so many different mind the gap techniques that you can teach kids. You can teach them to notice and name their emotions, right? So they can literally narrate what's going on with them. I'm feeling angry right now. I feel like yelling. Instead of yelling, just saying what they feel like. Noticing and naming activates the language center, which takes bandwidth away from the emotional brain, which is where that really angry reaction, spurs from. And then we teach them to notice and name their reactions. Or their physical reactions. My chest is tight. My throat is burning. And then we ask them to enter something called the slow zone, right? Because anger is very fast. It makes you speak more quickly. It makes you speak more loudly. It's quick. It's fast. The reaction's very fast. So we want them to slow down, right? So we teach them things like drawing out their anger animal, their anger animal, we call it, right? If they're so angry and they transformed into this angry animal, what would it look like? We teach them some breathing techniques. I could do an entire master class on breathing techniques alone, but the one that I teach them is to forget all of the breathing techniques you've ever learned and just extend the exhale. Do as long of an exhale as possible. And for little kids, I just tell them to blow out a birthday candle for as long as you can. Because if you try to concentrate on the inhale and the exhale, they get lost, especially in the moment. But if you just concentrate on blowing out a candle for as long as you can, that automatically, brings them to a place of diaphragmatic breathing where they're breathing really deeply in order to do the exhale for a really long time. We teach them to zoom out and get perspective, to visualize, to even walk in slow motion, right? To physically take on slow-mo, and they love to do this. These things require practice outside of the moment, as do all tools. Think of this as if you've ever taken a test in your life, you don't open the book to study for the test the moment you sit down for the exam, right? It wouldn't make any sense in the moment. You cannot teach these things in the moment. They need to be taught outside the moment. And then not all of them are going to resonate with everyone. And some of them are going to be fails and many of them are not. So you really have to experiment with some trial and error with your kids and with yourself. Okay, I want to get to perfectionism and to negative thoughts because I have a few important things to say about perfectionism and negative thoughts. So first of all, for perfectionism, the goal should be mastery over perfection, right? Perfectionism, they have something in the research called healthy perfectionism, adaptive perfectionism. I don't really believe in that. I'm going to tell you in a second why. the research is showing there's three different kinds of perfectionism: socially prescribed, so perceiving sort of excessive expectations of perfection from others on you, and then imposing perfection on yourself, self-oriented, and then expecting other people to be perfect, other-oriented perfectionism. So there's three kinds of perfectionism. I'm just kind of putting this out there. It doesn't relate necessarily to interventions, but just so you know what the research is showing. Now, when it comes to mastery versus perfection, mastery is really, the way that I think about it is that perfectionists are trying to swim and touch the horizon. They're not realistic, right? And masters are using the horizon as a guide, so they are realistic. But I also think this, after I made the slide, I've been thinking, the thing about perfectionists is that they're not actually swimming toward anything. Most of the kids that I work with that have perfectionistic tendencies and want to show up as perfect are afraid to show up as themselves, essentially. In any situation, they want to appear to be perfect. And in this, what happens is they're not actually striving toward anything, they're avoiding everything. They avoid everything. They're avoiders. So they're not, trying to achieve these super high goals, because eventually they end up not taking as many risks and they stop trying. So that's what I've seen with them. So what do we do when our kids are afraid to take risks because they don't want to fail and they don't want to show up as who they really are? We make their goals more gradual, because for perfectionistic thinkers, everything is hugely overwhelming, right? Hugely overwhelming. So when you have a big goal, reaching the moon, whatever the big goal is, right? Finishing the end of the year of school, taking a test, it doesn't matter what the big goal is, because that's subjective and it's relative. But take that goal that feels big and break it up into smaller goals, right? For your kids. Break it up into smaller goals and then create action steps that they can take toward each goal, because then it's less overwhelming. They have an action step to take. And then when they take it, they're actually tasting some success, right? Because that success then helps them move forward. One thing that we don't do when we're perfectionists is we do not savor, right? Tool 9 is to savor, to party it up. When something goes well, a daily action is taken, it can take between 5 and 20 seconds to really absorb the psychological win from something, to really absorb something positive that's happened. So you literally have to sit with it, because otherwise it's like, oh yeah, I did good on that, but I've just moved on, right? So it's really about celebrating those wins. And then teaching kids to be their own best friends, about self-compassion, right? So we teach kids to write a letter to themselves in the voice of their best friend, to remind themselves, we remind them and we ask them to remind themselves that we are all in this together, right? And that everybody struggles. And then we ask them to adopt a growth mindset. So growth mindsets and fixed mindsets you may have heard of before. Basically, a growth mindset is a kid who says the lines on the left. Failure is an opportunity to grow. Challenges help me grow. I can learn to do anything I want. Feedback is constructive, right? I like to try new things. What they know is that when they try something and they make mistakes, that helps their brain grow and it's part of the process. Whereas fixed mindsets, they say to themselves, listen, I was born with the cards I was dealt. I'm as smart as I am. I'm as talented as I am, and nothing about that is changing. Well, here's the thing. From a science-based perspective, that's not accurate, right? We change, and there's an entire field of neuroscience that's showing the plasticity of the brain and the ability for the brain to change. So we do change, right? The brain does change, and mistakes can help it grow. So the good thing is if your child has a natural disposition of having a fixed mindset, well, that is not fixed. That is changeable, right? So we teach kids sentences that they can say, phrases they can say. I can learn anything I want to do, right? When I fail, I learn. You probably have seen posters like this hanging up before. And we teach them the word yet, because it's powerful. I haven't learned to do that yet. and we use it ourselves as adults. Well, I haven't learned to do that. I haven't learned to do this yet. I'm still practicing this. So we're modeling it for them so we can help them cultivate a growth mindset, which helps them when it comes to perfectionistic tendencies. And because we're running short on time, I am going to do the science in a nutshell for negative thoughts, which is this: don't repress it, okay? Because when you repress your negative thoughts, or if your child is having negative thoughts and you try to counter them with positive thoughts, you are going to lose, right? Or if they're trying to just suppress them, they are going to lose. It doesn't work. It doesn't work. It just rears its ugly head. So we teach kids to welcome their thoughts. We teach them that they have anywhere from 60 to 70,000 thoughts a day, and that they can observe them and they can lean into the discomfort of their thoughts. Their thoughts are like trains. Their brain is like a train station. If you have a thought, that comes and it sits over your head and it's bothering you, watch it, right? Observe it. Thank your brain. Hey, brain, thank you. Got it. And then just discard the inaccurate thoughts by letting them pass. So these are mindfulness techniques, right? You can also make fun of your thoughts. You can sing them in a funny voice. You can collect evidence and you can dispute your thoughts, right? So that's a little bit different. That's not mindfulness, but that is a technique that can be used. But the main crux of negative thinking, and the idea is not to suppress. Okay, I am going, so Jean is asking, is there a higher number of thoughts for those with ADD? I want to say that the thought, if you do the research on the number of thoughts per day, it's not an exact science, and there's a lot of dispute as to how many thoughts we actually have and how people calculated it. However, that being said, I think the gist of it is, like, we have tens of thousands of thoughts every day, and many of those thoughts are just not true because we do not have the capacity, our conscious brain does not have the capacity to really evaluate uh, all of the data around us and make accurate decisions really quickly and accurate judgments really quickly. It's why we misjudge stuff all of the time. So that's just my quick thing, because I saw that out of the corner of my eye. Okay, I'm going to give you a recap, and then I want to tell you about something new going on. I want to give you your bonuses, and I want to give you all your goodies and everything. And I want to honor your time. I'm usually right on time. So we have a few minutes, and I want to answer any Q&A. Okay, so stick with me. Don't go anywhere, because I'm going to do a recap. I'm going to give you your goodies. I'm going to tell you about something new that we've never done before. Okay, so here's the recap. Address a stress has an upside mindset. And I know that people are asking about the slides. I'm going to answer that in a sec. Bring stress to life. Feel your feelings. Anger. Adopt an anger has an upside mindset. Use your supervision to see what's underneath. Feel your feelings, right? Feel your angry feelings. Teach your kids to feel their angry feelings. And I always say to them, the feelings are okay. Every feeling is valid. It's okay to be angry. It's not okay to be aggressive. Perfectionism, mastery over perfection, chunk it down, party it up. Remember to savor the wins. So important. Be your own best friend. Don't talk to your best friends in a more compassionate way than you speak to yourself, right? Because it's not the best way to reach your goals. Adopt a growth mindset. And for negative thoughts, welcome the thoughts. Hey, thought, I see you there. You're not really accurate. I'm letting you pass by, right? That is literally, sorry to those researchers out there, I've boiled down thousands of research papers into welcome the thoughts. That's what we need to do with our negative thoughts. Okay, so I want to tell you about something we have going on, because when I was growing up, right, I had my parents, they're amazing, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about them in a second, but whenever people come to me, they always say to me, okay, so what do I do next? I've taken one of these classes. I really liked it. There were like a million slides, like, what do I do next? And I say, when I was growing up, there was the complex option, right? It's always, to me, like this really complex option versus a more straightforward option. My parents went complex because that's the option that they had, right? And it is the reason why I created GoZen. My parents were reading books and they were trying to help me with my worry, and they were losing stuff in translation, not because their English was poor, their English is great, losing stuff in translation because they were trying to take psychological tools and they were trying to teach them to a child in child-based language, and they weren't able to do it properly, and no fault of their own, they weren't studied in it. I wanted to create programs where kids were able to literally watch things on their own, watch cartoons on their own. And it's why I created GoZen with a mission of reaching at least 1 million kids by 2020. And I feel like we are right on track for that. But I also wanted to work with parents. And a lot of times when I give these master classes, people have been saying to me, hi, can I watch the class again? Where do I get the slides? It was great, but my hand's hurting from taking notes, And so this is the first time ever that I have put a package together that has anything to do with these master classes. And I want to tell you what it is, because when I showed it to my team, they thought I was a little bit cuckoo. But again, my goal is to reach as many kids and parents as possible. I want to kick that trend of mental health in our generation, like what is going on with our kids. I want to kick it in the butt. And the only way to do that is to work with parents and to work with kids. So I want to show you something that I've put together for the first time. It probably won't be up for very long because, again, I said with my team, it wasn't very popular with them. So I've put a masterclass package together. So if you enjoyed this masterclass, I have 6 masterclasses essentially. This is my most popular one I've ever done, 9 things that every parent with an anxious child should try. I've taught it to over 100,000 parents. It talks about a lot about why reassurance doesn't work and what to do instead, and 9 research-based tools that are different than the tools that you see here to work with kids 5 to 15 with chronic worry. And again, as I said, it's my most popular masterclass ever. It's 55 minutes in length. And for the first time ever, I'm also giving my slides, which are PDF versions basically of the slides. And then I have this masterclass, which is 12 tools, as you know, because it's the one you just watched, which is 52 minutes with the slides included. And then I have a masterclass on panic that goes much deeper into what we were talking about, right? So we talk about the panic attack myth, the neuroscience on it, and the tips and tricks to pass through panic or anxiety. So it's 34 minutes with the slides included. And then I have masterclasses that are taught by world-renowned experts. So the one on the left is Elijah Goldstein. He's the foremost expert in mindfulness basically in the world. There's Caroline Adams Miller. She is the foremost expert on goal setting in the world. And then there's Karen Baruch Feldman, who teaches about motivation. She's an award-winning school psychologist. And here's the thing, if you have been with GoZen, if you've been on our newsletter, or if you've been following any of the work, you know that we are prolific, not because we want to be, but because we want to put a lot of content out there that people are asking for. So we are continuing to create these classes. So what I'm doing with this is putting this bundle together, and where we have these 6 classes, right? But I didn't think that that was enough. So you have 6 classes, PowerPoint slides that you can stream anytime. And I wanted to give lifetime access because people were shaking their heads at subscriptions saying, can you please give us things for lifetime access? So you are actually able to get those 6 classes with lifetime access right now at gozen.com/super bundle. But I want to tell you, and this was the thing that was kind of unpopular with my team, I want to tell you this bonus that I'm giving, because I'm continuing to create these classes. I just created another one actually that I'm going to release soon. I'm going to give you unlimited updates with that. So that means that you will get updates to existing classes, which is like if the tables were reversed, I would be like, okay, well, that's nice, but that's not that exciting. But here's the super exciting part. I'm going to give you access to any new master classes that I create for no extra charge forever. So you'll have lifetime access to 6 master classes plus lifetime updates to any classes that I have, any new master classes that come out for just a one-time fee. And I'm probably only going to leave this up for a little while because, again, my team was like, what do you mean you're going to do updates forever? like, yeah, updates forever, because I want to reach more people, and this is the way to do it, and I want to make impact, and that's what I want to do. So at gozen.com/super bundle, to me, everything that this is about transformation. You know, it's again, a one-time fee, lifetime access, and lifetime updates. And all of the digital stuff that we do is always, if it doesn't work for you, just give it back to us in 30 days, and we don't ask any questions. And now it's time for question and answer about what I just talked about in terms of the masterclass offer or anything on the class. But I want to tell you guys two things. So first of all, I'm going to put my video back on so you know that I'm a real person and not a robot, not an Autobot. Hi, guys. Okay. Does this include the kids' cartoon video? So let me just say two things really quickly. First of all, I have bonuses for you. The bonuses are on the bottom of that page, gozen.com/super bundle. They're based on the WHOOP method, which is a goal setting method. So there's two bonuses on that. That's for you guys. The second thing I want to say, and if you guys have been on any of my master classes, you know I don't do a lot of talk about my family and like personal stuff going on, but my son is sick. So I am going to do Q&A for you because I want to be here for you, but it's not going to be a very hugely long Q&A session tonight, just so you guys know. He's 4, and I need to be home with him pretty soon. Okay, so I just wanted to get that out of the way. And the third thing that I wanted to tell you is that what was the third thing that I wanted to tell you? Okay, it'll come back to me. Oh, this is what I wanted to tell you. Thank you so much for wishing him well. I want to tell you that this chat box is very small for me. So when the questions scroll, sometimes I miss some. And so if I miss your question, I'm sorry, and you can email go@gozen.com, and we will do our very, very best. We do our very best to get back to everyone that emails into us. Okay, so thank you so much. Do you meet with kids in person at schools? I do talks at schools, Ken. I don't do one-on-one with kids right now. It's just not in the capacity of what I can do right now. But yes, I hope that answers your question. Do you have any tips on modifications for kids with disabilities who may have limited understanding of these great concepts? Alicia, we have kids of all different learning differences that are using our programs. We have kids of all different ages, and so it really is a matter of facilitation, you know, and seeing with really good facilitation if it still works for them. And that's kind of the best I can do without a more specific question. This class is great. Thank you so much. Is there a replay available of this? The honest answer is I don't know. A lot of times I don't do replays because I believe in the live event. I believe in the energy of the event. I like to give bonuses for those of you who are able to come live. The package that I'm offering is selling this particular class, and I don't want to devalue that from anyone that purchases it. So the answer is maybe, maybe not. This was a fantastic class and super bundle. Thank you so much. And so how do I get access to cartoon content for kids? So if you go to gozen.com, we have lots of different packages there. We have packages for parents. We have packages for professionals that we also allow parents to buy if they want to. Our professional packages include all of our animated programs, but you can just go to gozen.com and you'll find all of the different packages that we have there for the kids to use directly. Will you do a masterclass on how to raise a superhero? Maybe. I would love to. Thank you for asking. All the strategies are great, and I have used some before, but they are way too time consuming to use when you're in a rush. They take time to talk through the Lala. How do we get these when we're rushed to school or work? Yes. There are some in the moment things that you can certainly do, right? And all of the stuff that you do in the moment with your kids is going to be patchwork. So I have a 4 and a 5-year-old, and they go to school and we get out the door in the morning, and I completely understand your question when you're in a rush and it's like, trying to get out the door. Oh my goodness, one of them is having a meltdown. Okay, what can I throw at you really quickly so that this is fixed? It's like that iceberg slide. If you were here for the iceberg slide, you're fixing a little tip of the iceberg, you know? You might be able to do something here and there. You might be able to give a little empathy. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Maybe you just sit and hold space for them while they get through. But I'm not gonna, I guess I'm not gonna make any promises that I don't believe in. I do not believe that if your child has something that they're dealing with on a chronic basis, that you are doing them any benefit by giving them a tip or a tool when they're in the heat of the moment. It's just not going to get to the root of any issue. So some of these things do take time and some of them do take practice, but honestly, some of them take 5 or 10 minutes of practice a day, and you build it into your routine like brushing your teeth, I think. Thanks for the workshops and have a good night. Thank you so much. If your kid is super high emotion, cries all the time, also diagnosed with anxieties, it's still okay to tell them to cry or that at some point they need to get it together. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to say it like that. Get it together. He is always either angry or crying. It gets exhausting. Yeah, so it can be a go-to thing, a go-to coping technique, or just a go-to habit that a child has if they're crying or they're angry all the time because they haven't develop the skills to express in a different way and to do things in a different way. So I think it honestly would be a longer conversation. I think it kind of depends on the situation and what's going on and what else has been tried. Yeah, I would say that there are no hard rules to say like it's okay to cry every time you cry if you're crying 24 hours a day, right? So if we're taking it to an extreme, then obviously there are other things going on where they don't feel like they can express themselves in other ways. So I think that again, it depends on the situation. I don't think that if you have a child that's the only expression that they have that you're saying it's okay to do it. But I also don't think that the answer is saying get it together, right? So I think they're all alternatives to talk about and to practice with them, and some of the tools from this particular class to practice with them when they are not in that state, so that when they get to the point where they feel like they want to go into the crying or into the anger, they have another tool to go to. It's really about giving them a bag full of tools that they can practice. And yes, you have to practice and you have to build it into your life, right? You have to build these things into your life. It would be like going to a class on meditation and saying, this meditation thing is so great. I can see all the benefits, but I really only have 20 seconds a day. So I don't want to do it. And I would say, if you're time poor, like many of us are, then practice for 20 seconds a day and then try to nudge it to 21 and then try to nudge it to 22 and then try to nudge it. So that's what I would say. Do you think negative thought strategy works for, and that's what I'm talking about, the Zoom, works for grief? Oh, for grief and for loss. Yes. So I'm not saying to invalidate the thoughts, but really being able to observe them in a way that's non-judgmental and not trying to change them. So I think even for kids who are experiencing grief and loss, we're often trying to change instead of observing and perhaps changing the relationship that we have with them. I hope that helps a little bit. What do you offer for tunes? The cartoons are too babyish for my son. For teens, we have some short stories that are amazing, written by a fiction writer on our team. They're edgy. They have interventions built into them without really knowing. We call them kits, K-I-T. And so if you go to gozen.com/shop, you will be able to find some of those things for teens, and we are building more stuff out for teens. Teens also might want to take some of our master classes, so if they're interested in that. Okay. I'm trying to scroll, you guys. I'm trying to scroll. These strategies are applicable to autism and ADHD, but do you have any alterations to help them make them more accessible to a rigid mind? So these strategies were created for a universal population, right? They weren't created for a particular population of kids who are on the spectrum or kids who are ADHD. I think I would need more information on what a rigid mind is. So this sounds to me like a kid who doesn't really want to hear it. I don't really need your help. And I think that the first place to start there is working on the connection between parent and child, because if you're not able to get that door open with them, yeah, it will be really hard for them to say, yeah, I want to take this on. It is like anything that you want someone else to do that they don't intrinsically want to do becomes very difficult. Change becomes very difficult. The change starts from within, and then in order to really even be able to introduce the ideas, you need to have that door of connection open, and that's where the work needs to be done. And I'm not taking away from the difficulty of that, but that would be kind of my answer to the rigid mind question. Will your link be available tomorrow? Yes, I think there's a timer or a date, like a deadline at the top of that page, Super Bundle. I think it's the next 3 days or so. Um, if a kid is feeling anger and throwing things or slamming doors, do we let them do that and then talk about widening the gap later? How do we practically get them to widen the gap when 6-year-olds are so impulsive? How do we combat impulsivity? I think we talk to them about their brain. So again, I have a 5.5-year-old, so I understand that age very, very well. And kids are impulsive, and their prefrontal cortex is growing and growing and growing and growing. And you could show them a drawing of the brain and the parts of the brain that you're trying to work on. Kids of even 5 or 6 are absolutely able and fascinated, frankly, about the science, the science of the brain and why they're doing things. And like, you threw that, the throwing comes from this part of the brain, and what we're trying to work on is this part of the brain, because what could you have done differently? In that situation, I saw that you threw and that you slammed, and that was really hard for all of us, and the whole house got angry, even I got angry, and I wish we could have done it a different way. When they're calm, and what do you think we can do next time? And they're going to say, well, I won't slam the door, maybe I'll use my words, or whatever we've taught them. And you say, okay, but then that really becomes hard in the moment, and then you can literally draw a brain for them. Look, I'm going to, why it's hard? It's hard because of this, because this part of your brain is taking over. Or it's why we use Whittle the Worrier. Like Whittle is taking over, or for anger, so we have other characters. So we have Fury for anger, and our anger transformation program for kids is still in development, but we do have an anger transformation program for grown-ups. So if anyone's interested in that, it's at gozen.com/anger. But what I'm getting at is that basically, yes, you have to try it outside the moment of anger. You have to set the boundaries. So this isn't about having no limits. This isn't about having a boundaryless society in the house. This is about setting the limits with love and compassion, and then explaining to them and working on the tools outside of the heat of the moment. It's never going to work in the heat of the moment, right? Their brain's been hijacked, essentially. All right, guys. So how do you discipline kids when nothing works? They do the opposite of what you ask them to do. Yeah, I mean, I think if we lose connection with our kids and they're like, listen, you know, I'm I'm not I'm not going to do that anymore. I'm not going to listen to you, or I don't care what you have to say. Essentially, I don't respect it, or whatever the case may be, right? Whatever the case may be as for why they're not listening to us anymore. Um, Again, this is a matter of reopening that connection and reopening that door. I think that if you're at a point where you're head to head battling, that becomes very difficult. They're not going to listen, right? And forcing them has a lot of repercussions, obviously, that are not good. So our egos can get in the way a lot when we get to the point where we're like, you're going to listen to me. And we essentially want control of the situation. And we're trying to figure out how we get our kids to do what we want and to do what we're saying to do. So it can be extremely frustrating. So I think the first thing is to take a break and take a lot of space from the situation to say, okay, I want to put my ego to the side and make sure this is not me trying to force this situation on them and force them to listen to me, but this is me saying I want a relationship with my kid where they want to listen to some of the things that I have to say, maybe not all of them, but some of the things that I have to say. And where is that disconnection? Like, why isn't that happening? Why aren't they listening? Like, what is going on underneath the behavior? What is going on in their life that they don't want to? Were they just wired this way? Because sometimes I feel like we want to say like, oh yes, my child is just defiant. They've been defiant since like the womb, and they came out and now they're just still defiant, and that's just who they are. Maybe sometimes, but not for the most part. For the most part, it's a relationship issue. So think about it in your life as an adult, who you listen to and who you respect. So it's a matter of figuring out how to recultivate that. And because you guys, I'll sometimes ask really big questions, and I'm trying my best to give answers, but they're soundbite questions because of the format that we're in, and so I'm kind of giving soundbite answers back. But I'm trying my best here. Okay, so for those of you who have asked questions, like I said before, that I'm so sorry you have asked questions and I have left them unanswered, you can email us at go@gozen.com. And I also would say that this is, in the 8 years we've been in business, this is probably one of the rarest kind of offers that we've made, the gozen.com/super bundle for the master classes to get updates sort of forever and to get new classes that we do like this forever. If you enjoyed this format and you feel like you took something from it, not just that, oh yeah, I have a tool and it's going to like change my family, but maybe you took something personally from it that gives you personal support, even that's something, then I would say consider the investment in that. And then, as you know, this is not about some high pressure, sales funnel pitch. That's not who we are. We are here. We will always be doing stuff for free. We will always be giving classes for free. We have tons of stuff on our blog. We regularly are making posters and giving them away, stay on our newsletter, But if you want to take a deeper dive and feel like this might work for you, then I would suggest that you look at this particular offer because we haven't made it before and we probably won't make it again. I thank you guys so much for being here. You were an incredible audience with beautiful energy. I really, really, really appreciate you and everything you're doing and everything you're doing for kids. And I will see you on the next class. Thank you. Bye, guys.